She looked me dead in the eye, in front of 52 people, and said, "This one's never lifted a finger." That's what my mother said about me. Hi, my name is Lauren. I'm 34. I work full-time as a financial analyst in Boston. I live alone, and I've spent the last 15 years quietly paying off my parents' mortgage, utilities, groceries, medical bills, even my sister's college tuition when no one else could. And in one sentence, my mother erased all of it. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been the one who gave everything and still got called selfish, this story is for you. So hit that like button, leave a comment if you've ever been written out of your own family's narrative, and subscribe because sometimes silence isn't golden, it's weaponized. It happened on a Saturday in June. We were up in New Hampshire for the annual family reunion, 52 people crammed into this old lakeside lodge with creaky floors, mismatched chairs, and checkered tablecloths that smelled like syrup and sunblock. There was a speaker on the porch blasting Fleetwood Mac like we were throwing a wedding in 1987. Toddlers were sprinting through table legs. Adults were double-fisting sangria and burgers. And someone's uncle was already passed out in a lawn chair. It was messy, loud, familiar, but for the first time in years, I felt hopeful, like maybe this year wouldn't end with someone crying in the car. Maybe this time, we'd just eat, laugh, fake smile through awkward stories, and go home pretending we were normal. I'd even brought a gift for my parents, a reservation at their favorite French bistro in Portsmouth, the one they always mentioned but never actually went to. I slipped the folded printout under their dinner plates before they sat down. Nothing flashy, just thoughtful, quiet, like me. My sister, Marin, was already working the room barefoot, in a white sundress, tan glowing like she'd just floated off a Pinterest board. She was holding a frame wrapped in tissue paper, tied with a yellow ribbon. I didn't think much of it. Marin always brought something handmade. She's the creative one, the free spirit, the daughter who gave them mixed CDs in high school, homemade glitter cards on Mother's Day, and once tried to launch a soy candle brand on Etsy. She also hasn't paid rent in over a decade. But who's counting? She floated past me with that sparkle smile she reserves for family functions and Instagram stories. I gave a nod. She didn't stop. We sat down for dinner, paper plates, overcooked brisket, someone yelling for more ketchup. I found a seat near the end of the table, between two second cousins who didn't know my name. Perfect. Then Marin stood up. Someone, probably our mom, handed her a microphone. A microphone? At a cookout? She laughed, doing that coy little shrug. Oh gosh, I didn't plan to say anything. Which, of course, meant she had practiced the speech for days. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, clapping twice like she was calling a kindergarten class to order. "I just have a little something for our amazing parents." She turned, handed the wrapped frame to Mom. Inside was a collage photos of Marin, Mom, and Dad. Vacations, birthdays, porch selfies, no trace of me, not even on the edge. Mom blinked at the frame, smiled slowly, then stood up. She raised her glass, and that's when she said it. "This is the daughter who's always loved us." A few people clapped. One person even went, "Ah." Then she added louder, "The other one? She's never lifted a finger." The room dropped into silence. Not dramatic, just stunned. Like a room that suddenly remembered someone had left the oven on. A fork clattered. Someone coughed. I didn't look around. Didn't need to. I felt it, the confusion, the recalibration, the mental math, the part where everyone silently rewrites their memories to match the new script. I didn't say a word, didn't cry, didn't ask what the hell she thought I'd been doing all these years. I just stood up, grabbed my bag, and left. No scene, no raised voice, just this weird, bone-deep clarity. If I stayed 1 second longer, I knew I'd never forget the sound of everyone not standing up for me. The highway home was a blur of taillights and questions I didn't ask out loud. No music, no podcast, just silence and a list forming in my head. How many times had I wired them money? How many birthdays had I skipped to work overtime so they could keep the house? How many phone calls started with just this once and ended with my routing number? They called me cold. Maybe, but I was also the reason they still had hot water. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the list had turned into something else. Not rage, not even grief. Just clarity. They erased me, so maybe, finally, it was time I stopped showing up for the part they never wrote me into. At 6:17 a.m. the next morning, the calls started. One from Mom, then two, a few from Dad, 14, yes, 14 from Marin, the sister who hadn't called me in months unless she needed help with her taxes. 38 missed calls in total. By breakfast, I made coffee, sat on the kitchen counter, stared at the phone like it was a stranger. Then I answered, not out of generosity, out of curiosity. Lauren, oh, thank God, Marin said. We didn't know where you went. I'm great, I said, and I was. We can't get on the boat. What boat? The sightseeing cruise. The one this morning. They said it was canceled, something about a card being declined. Ah, I said, sipping. That's it? What do you mean? The card on file was mine. I canceled it. Silence. I could hear her blinking. But why? I smiled. Because last night, Mom stood in front of 52 people and said I never lifted a finger. So I figured, why not finally make that true? Marin didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. I could almost hear her calculating which card was linked to what, trying to piece together how the boat cancellation had anything to do with me. But the whole trip, she finally said, like I'd kicked over a wedding cake. Yep, the lodging too. Their cabin booked under my name. I canceled it. Another pause. Thicker this time. I imagined her standing in the lodge parking lot, sun in her eyes, hair slightly frizzy, holding her phone like it was a detonator she didn't know how to disarm. They don't even have a way back. Well, I said, then I guess you'll need to pay for their tickets. I don't have the money. That's okay, I replied softly. You're the daughter who's always loved them. I'm sure they'll understand. And I hung up. Not with a slam, not with a scream, just a click. And a kind of stillness I hadn't felt in years. There's something surreal about watching people panic when you stop doing the work they never noticed you were doing. That Sunday, I didn't leave the house. I drank my coffee slowly, barefoot in the kitchen, tracing the grain of the wood floor with my big toe, while my phone sat silent for the first time in days. Outside, the potted lavender on my front steps had started to wither. I'd brought that plant back from my parents' yard last spring, cut a piece from the overgrown shrub they never trimmed, rooted it in a jar on my windowsill, and nursed it like it meant something. It was dry now, pale, soft, hollow at the stem. I didn't water it. Not that morning. They didn't call again that day. Not a single text. Nothing. Which almost made me laugh. Clearly, someone had told them to give her space. Like I was a toddler throwing a tantrum over snack options, not a grown woman who'd just been publicly erased in front of her entire extended family. By Monday, I knew they were back home. Not because anyone called, but because my dad's Facebook changed locations. Great weekend with family. We are so blessed. No mention of me, of course. And still, radio silence. I imagined them walking through the front door and sensing that something felt off. Maybe the Wi-Fi didn't connect. Maybe the cable box wouldn't load. Maybe the thermostat blinked low battery, even though it had never done that before. The mortgage payment, usually drafted at 8:03 a.m. sharp, didn't go through. The electric bill bounced. The grocery delivery never showed. Then came the alerts. Failed payment. Transfer declined. Account closed. It was like watching dominoes fall. Quiet. Beautiful. I didn't even need to check anything. The emails flowed in on their own. My inbox lit up like a Christmas tree of financial justice. They must have tried logging into the joint account I'd let them use for years. There were 2 failed attempts from a new device. After the second one, the bank locked the account automatically. Oops. That night, around 9:30, there was a knock at my door. I was in sweats, hair in a bun, drinking ginger tea while scrolling Zillow for apartments I didn't plan to rent. The knock made me freeze. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew who it was. I stood in the hallway, back flat against the wall, staring at the door like it might speak first. Then I heard my mother's voice. Lauren. I opened the door. She looked older, not in a tragic way, just in the way people do when their lives stop being propped up by someone else's effort. No makeup, wind-blown hair, a cardigan that was too thin for the breeze. Her arms were folded, like she was trying to shrink herself. My dad stood behind her, arms crossed, not angry, just present. "Can we come in?" she asked, eyes darting to the lavender beside me like she might find an answer there. "No," I said, "but we can talk here." She looked around the porch like it embarrassed her to be outside, like this conversation needed walls to protect it. "We just wanted to clear the air," she began. "I'm sure," I said. "What happened at the reunion?" she started. "You mean when you stood up in front of 52 people and said I'd never lifted a finger? That wasn't how I meant it." I tilted my head. It sounded pretty clear. "It was a moment," she said. "Maren had just given us that photo, and everyone was watching. She's been going through a hard time." "She always is." "She's trying, Lauren." I folded my arms. "You know how much she struggles. She just wanted to do something nice. So you decided to crown her publicly and demote me to, what, the utility company?" "That's not fair," she said. "No," I said. "What's not fair is paying over $150,000 toward your bills over the past 15 years, and getting told I never lifted a finger." Her face froze. My dad blinked. I hadn't planned to say it, but once it came out, I felt lighter, like releasing a weight that had been welded to my ribcage. "That number's real, by the way," I added. "I did the math. Mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, the time I paid Maren's credit card bill because she was too stressed to breathe. It adds up." "We never asked you to," my dad said, voice soft. "No," I agreed. "You just let me, year after year." A silence fell. My mom stared at the dying lavender. My dad looked like he wished he were anywhere else. Then she said, "So what? This is about money." "No," I said. "It's about you standing in front of a room full of people and rewriting our history. It's about being erased, while I was still paying your heating bill." "We didn't think you'd take it so personally," she said, voice tight. I laughed. "Well, here we are." That's when she changed tactics. Her voice softened. The shift was almost imperceptible, but I knew it, the tone she used when she wanted something without asking for it. "We just want to fix this," she said. "We love you." I met her eyes. "Then maybe," I said, "you should have said that instead of handing out roles like we were characters in some story you wrote to make yourselves feel better." She nodded slowly, as if she accepted that. "But then she said, Joy, Maren didn't mean to hurt you." I stared at her. "She didn't say it," I said. "You did." The silence after that was thicker than the one after her toast. "Eventually," I said, "if you came here to ask for help with the house." She flinched. "I'm not the right daughter anymore." Then I closed the door and left them standing on my porch like strangers who had the wrong address. It was 2 days later when the doorbell rang again. I was folding laundry, the cheap kind that always smells faintly of detergent and resignation. I knew who it was before I looked through the peephole. Marin! She rang the bell twice sharp and fast, like she was delivering a package she didn't want to explain. When I opened the door, she didn't wait for permission. She stepped inside like it was still 2012, and she was borrowing my heels without asking. Her hair was in a messy bun that didn't look intentional this time. Dark circles ringed her eyes. Her hoodie was wrinkled, and she clutched a reusable grocery bag like it might turn into a parachute. "Do you even know what you're doing to them?" she asked, her voice already sharp. I closed the door behind her, slowly, calmly, like I had all the time in the world. "You'll have to be more specific." They're panicking. She dropped the grocery bag on my kitchen counter. "They said the mortgage is due in 3 days, and they don't have enough to cover it." I raised my eyebrows, pretending to be surprised. "Huh. You didn't even warn them. You mean after Mom stood up in front of 52 people and said I'd never done anything for them?" She rolled her eyes. She got caught up in the moment. "Then let the moment pay the bills." "You're being spiteful." "No," I said. "I'm being factual. You all said I never helped. I'm just adjusting my behavior to match." She blinked. "They don't have the money. You live with them. That's not fair. You don't pay rent. You don't cover utilities. But you had time to design a collage and post about Self-Care Sunday while using the water I paid for." Her face twisted, but she didn't argue, not out loud. "They're our parents," she said finally. "You're just going to let them struggle." "I'm going to let you step up," I said. "You're the daughter who always loved them. Remember?" It landed. I saw it. Just a flicker, a twitch in the corner of her mouth. The mask slipping. "They need help. Then get a job." She stared at me, mouth slightly open, like the thought had never occurred to her before. She turned and left without another word. Left the bag on the counter. Inside canned soup, off-brand ramen, paper towels that barely qualified as absorbent. She hadn't brought produce. She hadn't brought apologies. Just hunger in plastic form. That night, I stared at the bag, didn't touch it, didn't throw it out either. It felt like something between a bribe and a breadcrumb trail. A peace offering from someone who didn't want peace, just relief. My inbox lit up again the next morning. Overdue mortgage notice. Second notice water bill. Failed transfer emergency card. Each one made a soft ding on my phone, like applause in reverse. I wasn't spying. I hadn't logged into anything I wasn't allowed to, but I'd set the alerts years ago just in case. And now, just in case had arrived. That afternoon, I walked out onto the porch and looked at the lavender again. Still wilting. Still pale. Still hanging on, even though no one had touched it in days. I crouched beside it and traced one of the brittle stems with my finger. Then I stood up, went inside, grabbed the shears from under the sink, and snipped it off at the base. The pot was suddenly, shockingly empty. And yet I felt clearer. That evening, I wrote a letter. Not to them. To myself. I didn't plan it, didn't even mean to, but my hands moved before I could talk myself out of it. Lauren, you are not cold. You are not cruel. You are not failing. You are finished. You are done renting your love in monthly installments. They didn't choose you, so now you choose you. I folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, and tucked it inside the drawer with the mortgage receipts I no longer needed. A few days later, they showed up. All 3 of them. Mom, Dad, Marin. They didn't knock, not right away. They stood at the bottom of my porch steps like kids outside a principal's office, shoulder to shoulder, awkward, small. I watched them through the living room window. They looked thinner, like something had been drained from them. Eventually, Dad knocked. 3 short taps. I opened the door. No one spoke. Then my mother said, "We're sorry." Her voice was small, smaller than I'd ever heard it, like it was afraid to take up space. My dad didn't say anything. His jaw was set, but not angry, just tired, like a man who finally knew the cost of pretending. Marin didn't even look up. Her eyes were hollow, not defiant, not apologetic, just done. We shouldn't have said what we said, Mom continued. It was stupid. We didn't think. No, I said, you did think. You just didn't think it would cost you anything. She looked down. It was the moment, Marin added quietly. You know how Mom gets. And I liked hearing it, she admitted. That's on me. We didn't mean it, Mom said. I nodded. Doesn't matter now. You made a choice. You need to understand. No, I said, you need to understand. I stepped out onto the porch and looked them each in the eye. You told 52 people that I'd never lifted a finger, while I was still paying your mortgage, your bills, your groceries, while my name was on your insurance, your utilities, your everything. I took a breath, let it settle. I paid $147,000 to be erased. They didn't argue, didn't defend, didn't deny, just stood there, 3 ghosts of people who once lived in a house I kept standing. And now, I said, you get to live with that. My mom swallowed hard. My dad looked away. Marin stared at her shoes, and I realized they weren't here to fight. They were here because they had nowhere else to go. I'm not angry anymore, I said. They looked up. I'm just done. And I closed the door. Again. 2 days after that last door slam, I was brushing my teeth when I heard the bell again. Twice. Short, urgent, familiar. Marin. This time, when I opened the door, she didn't have the same stormy confidence. She didn't rush in like she used to. She just stood there, shoes unlaced, eyes rimmed red, a single reusable grocery bag sagging from her shoulder. Her voice cracked the moment she opened her mouth. They made me get a job, she said, like she was reporting a war crime. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her, but no, she repeated it, slower. They made me get a job. I blinked, and I'm serious, Lauren. So am I. She stepped inside, uninvited but slow this time, like her body didn't want to be there, but her pride wouldn't let her turn back. She dropped the grocery bag on my kitchen counter again, same canvas, different contents. This time I peeked inside generic brand soup, instant coffee, off-brand tissues, no produce, no protein, just the diet of someone who had to choose between rent and vitamins. They said I have to help now, because you're gone, because you're the one who made everything work, apparently. She tried to say it like it didn't bother her, like it was just a statement, but her voice broke halfway through. They said that. She blinked. I mean, not like that, but yeah. I leaned back against the counter, arms folded, letting the weight of her confession fill the room like fog. They chose you, Marin, at the reunion, in front of everyone. You were the daughter who always loved them. I was just trying to be nice. And when Mom made that speech, I didn't know she'd say that. No, I said, but you liked it. She didn't deny it. She didn't say anything. The silence between us felt heavier than any yelling match we'd ever had growing up. It was the silence of someone who just discovered how much they didn't know about the other person. They need help, she whispered. Then help them. I can't afford everything. I looked at her, really looked, at the dark circles, at the wrinkled sleeves, at the way her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her hoodie, like she was trying to untangle a problem made of cotton. You've lived rent-free for 10 years, I said. No job, no bills. You had all the time in the world to find your way. She flinched. And when they needed something fixed, they called me. Not because they respected me, not because they liked me, but because they knew I'd come through. Her eyes were glass now. You were the joy, the light, the one who made them smile. And I was the utility account. She sniffed. That's not true.
Isn't it?
More silence. Then, quietly, I didn't think it would fall apart so fast. Because it never had to fall on you before. I walked over to the counter and took the bag she brought. I didn't throw it away. I didn't thank her either. I just placed it under the sink like I didn't want it to rot in plain sight. She watched, frozen. "I'm not mad anymore," I said. She nodded. "I'm just done." That's when her voice broke for real. "I can't do what you did," she whispered. "I know." That seemed to hurt more than any accusation could. "Try harder." I walked her to the door. She left without looking back. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because anything had been fixed, not because they apologized, but because for once, I wasn't the one holding it all up. And I wasn't lifting a finger. A week passed. No calls. No texts. But then, it started. They went public. It began with a Facebook post. My mom's, obviously. A smiling group photo from the reunion. The one without me in it. Captioned, "Family means everything, even when some people forget that." Cute. Then came the comments. "She walked out because your speech upset her. I mean, it wasn't even rude. You just said the truth. If someone gets offended just for hearing the truth, maybe there's a reason." I wasn't tagged. They didn't have to. 52 people had heard that speech. Most of them were online. All of them saw the photo. Some distant cousins dropped crying face emojis. One posted a vaguely religious meme about forgiveness, like this was an argument over casserole, not identity. No one asked what I'd done for the last 15 years. No one asked why the boat tour, the lodge, and the dinners all disappeared when I left. And then it happened. Someone commented. "She was always kind of cold, right? Not really involved." And my mother liked it. That's when I knew what I had to do. No rants, no clapbacks, just facts. I posted once. No snark, no sarcasm. Just screenshots. Bank statements. Confirmation emails. Wire transfers. Rent checks. Texts confirming receipt. At the bottom of the post in bold. Over the years, $48, $600. Mortgage, $35, $760. Utilities, $21, $240. Groceries, $6, $850. Roof repair, $7 at $80. Medical costs, $17, $950. Marin's tuition, $1, $8. Car repair, $2, $300. Family trip deposit. Dozens of smaller transactions I stopped tracking altogether. Total $147,000. I didn't tag anyone, didn't point fingers. I just posted it, left it public, then closed the app and went to bed. By morning, her original post was gone. So were 3 others from people trying to defend her. And then came the texts. From my aunt, "I had no idea you'd done all that. You've always been so quiet about it." From my cousin James, "That's insane. If I were you, I'd never speak to them again." From my mother, "Nothing." But from Marin, "We need to talk." The knock came just after 7 p.m., when the sun was still clinging to the edge of the sky, but the streetlights were already humming. I opened the door before the second knock landed. Marin stood there, alone, holding a manila envelope in one hand and a bottle of lemon-lime soda in the other. No grocery bag this time. No hoodie. Just jeans, sneakers, and a face that looked like it hadn't slept in days. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside. She walked in like it was familiar, but slower this time, like she was asking permission with each step. She didn't go to the couch. She didn't even sit. She just stood there in the kitchen, eyes bouncing from countertop to fridge, to the empty flower pot beside the sink. "They saw your post," she said, finally. I waited, and They're humiliated. I nodded. They should be. She opened the envelope and slid it across the table. Inside, a stack of printouts, mortgage notices, bounced utility bills, a water shutoff warning. One was dated 3 days from now. I looked up. You brought receipts? I thought you'd want to know how bad it's gotten. I already do. She rubbed her eyes. They're losing the house. Lauren. I exhaled through my nose. Not out of surprise. Out of inevitability. And that's why you're here. No, she said. I'm here because I finally get it. She sat down then, slowly, like her legs were no longer on her side. I used to think what you did was cold, she said. Working all the time, not coming home for holidays, always tired. I thought you were avoiding them, avoiding me. I didn't answer. But now I know you were just surviving. You were keeping everything stitched together with duct tape and PayPal, and none of us even noticed. Her eyes met mine, raw, honest. I'm sorry. I let the silence sit between us for a moment, long enough to matter. You don't get to erase 15 years of silence with one apology, I said. I know. But, I added, you are the first one to offer one. She blinked fast. I didn't press. We sat like that for a while. Two women raised in the same house, fed the same meals, told the same bedtime stories, and somehow handed wildly different instructions for how to be daughters. I keep thinking about that picture frame, she said. The collage. She nodded. At the time, it felt sweet, thoughtful. But now, I can't stop seeing it for what it was. What? A story without you in it. I didn't reply. And you didn't even say anything. You just left. It was louder than yelling, I said. I know, she whispered. She leaned forward, elbows on knees. I'm trying now, she said. I picked up shifts at the bakery on Main. It's not much, but it's something. That's good. She gave a half laugh. They hate it. Of course they do. They keep waiting for someone to bail them out. I tilted my head. That was never you, Marin. It is now. She took a long sip from the soda and stared into the middle distance. They asked me to move out, she said after a pause. Not because they don't want me, but because they can't afford to keep anyone. That house was never theirs, I said. Not really. It was rented for my exhaustion. She closed her eyes like the words physically hit her. I don't know what to do, she said. Start over. They're still family. So was I. We didn't say much after that. She stayed for another 20 minutes, just sitting in the silence, occasionally fidgeting with the corner of the envelope or tapping her nail against the soda bottle. When she finally stood up to leave, she hesitated at the door. If I'd stood up that night, she said, if I'd said something, would things be different now? I looked her in the eye. Yes. She nodded. That was it. She walked away quietly. Her steps heavy, but her spine straighter than it had been in weeks. The next morning, I checked my inbox. The alerts were still coming in, but now they felt distant, like echoes from a life I no longer lived. I opened my drawer and pulled out the letter I'd written to myself. I unfolded it. Read it again. You are done renting your love in monthly installments. I slipped it into a fresh envelope and wrote one new line on the back. You are allowed to stop. Then I slid it into a different drawer, the one where I kept the deed to my own apartment, the one no one else had ever lived in, the one I paid for with no applause. Later that week, my phone buzzed. A cousin. Apparently, my parents had listed the house. A quiet sale, no Facebook post, no announcement. They were moving into a rental cheaper, smaller, closer to the highway, one with thin walls and flickering lights. They had no choice. The house they always said I never lifted a finger to save. They let it go. And here's the twist. I didn't feel triumphant. No swelling music, no fist pump, no whispered serves you right. I just felt the weight shift. Not vanish. Just redistribute. That evening, I planted a new lavender. A fresh one, young, resilient. I patted the soil down with both hands, then stood up and watched the breeze ruffle its tiny green leaves. A symbol of something beginning again. This time, with no one borrowing the roots. I didn't hear from my parents again for nearly 3 weeks. No texts, no voicemails, no shared memes, no thinking of you forwards from Dad's old Yahoo account. Just silence, which, in its own way, was louder than anything they could have said. But the neighborhood talks. One morning, I got a text from my cousin Emily Drove, past your folks' new place. Wow. She didn't elaborate, but the photo she sent said enough. A squat, beige rental duplex with faded shutters, a sagging screen door, and a mailbox duct-taped at the hinge. There were oil stains in the driveway and a cracked lawn gnome near the steps. I stared at it for a long time. Not out of pity, but because that was the same house style my parents used to look down on. The kind they'd whisper about at block parties. That poor girl on Sycamore. You know, the one whose parents rent. And now, here they were, welcome to the other side of the American dream. A few days later, Marin texted again. They're adjusting? Barely. I didn't reply. Then came another. Mom tried to use your name to get the bank to give her a payment plan. They shut it down instantly. That one made me pause. Not because I was shocked she tried, but because for once she didn't succeed. I could imagine it perfectly, her in some drab bank lobby, cardigan too thin for the air conditioning, trying to smile her way into sympathy. But my daughter Lauren used to handle all of this. Only now, the name no longer held currency. The following weekend, I spent the morning repotting the new lavender on my porch. It had grown taller, stronger. The leaves were greener. It no longer bent to every gust of wind. I trimmed off the dead tips. Careful, almost reverent. I don't know why, but the act felt symbolic. Like tending to something that chose me back. That night, I was making pasta when the doorbell rang. Once. Then again, softer. I wiped my hands, walked over, and opened the door. This time, it wasn't Marin. It was both of them. My mother, my father. No umbrella, no overnight bags, no baked apology casseroles. Just them, standing under the porch light like it might offer mercy. Her hair was thinner than I remembered. He looked like someone had deflated the man I used to call Dad. Neither spoke first. Eventually, she tried. We don't expect anything. That was new. We're not here to argue, she added. I didn't move. I didn't gesture them in. My dad shifted on his heels, then said, "We know what we said and what we didn't say." There was a pause. I liked it, my mom admitted. When I said it, it felt nice, like someone was finally cheering for the child who hugs, not the one who wires money. I let that sit. I think, somewhere along the way, we convinced ourselves Marin gave us feeling, and you gave us function. She looked at me, and we thought love lived in feeling. But it didn't keep the lights on, I said. No, she admitted, it didn't. She reached into her purse and pulled something out. A small frame. The same collage. Except now, a fourth photo had been taped along the bottom edge. It was me, aged 28, standing on the porch in my old navy blazer, holding the document that refinanced their house. The day I saved their roof. We don't expect you to forgive us, she said, but we needed you to know. We finally see it. I didn't take the frame, but I looked at it. Really looked. And for the first time, the image didn't make my stomach turn. Later that night, I sat on my back steps, the wind threading through my sleeves. The lavender swayed beside me, steady and sure. And I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to earn a kind of love that was never designed for someone like me. The steady one, the self-sufficient one, the one who didn't cry at Christmas or overshare at dinner or collapse under debt. Just the one who kept showing up, in silence, with bills paid and hands full of groceries. The one who was never celebrated, because I never demanded to be. The next morning, I woke up to a different kind of alert. No bank notice. No bounced payment. Just a tagged photo. Marin again. This time, it was a mirror selfie in a new apartment. Sparse, dim, but hers. Caption starting over. No more free rides. Just me, one step at a time. I zoomed in. On the windowsill behind her, barely in frame, was a tiny lavender plant in a ceramic cup. And for the first time in years, I smiled before coffee. Then came the letter. A real one. In the mailbox. Handwritten. No return address. Inside. Lauren, I know I can't undo what's been done. But you taught me what love really costs. And I finally want to pay my part. I hope you'll let me try. Marin. I placed the letter in the same drawer as mine. Not to forget, but to remember that sometimes people don't change because they're asked. They change because they're left to feel the weight of what they took for granted. I was sipping tea by the window when the final message came. A text from a number I didn't recognize at first. You're welcome. No name. Just those 2 words. And something about it stopped me cold. Because I hadn't told anyone else about the screenshots. About the post. About the numbers. Had Marin. Had someone else. Or maybe, just maybe, someone in that room had known all along and chose silence. Until silence no longer worked. I stared at the message on my phone for a full minute. You're welcome. No name, no follow-up. Just those 2 words, simple, surgical, unnerving. I reread it again, slower this time. My first thought was Marin, but that didn't fit. She would have used more words, probably too many, and signed her name like a punctuation mark she hadn't earned. Mom, no. She didn't text unless it was a chain prayer or a coupon code she thought I could use. Dad. Maybe. He always knew more than he let on. Maybe he saw the post, saw the numbers, and recognized something in them. Not just dollars, not just debts, but a daughter, a story. But even then, the tone didn't match him. It felt sharper, clean-cut, almost smug. Then again, maybe it wasn't meant to comfort. Maybe it was just someone letting me know they saw everything fall just like I planned it. For days, I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on things that were mine. My job, my body, my time. I re-upped my gym membership, started roasting vegetables again instead of living on microwave meals. I even called an old friend I hadn't spoken to in months, someone who once told me, "You make space for everyone else, but forget yourself." Turns out she was right. Because for the first time in years, I had space. No overdraft alerts, no emergency wire transfers, no texts asking for just one more favor. It was quiet. And for once, quiet wasn't terrifying. It was freeing. I didn't completely cut them off. That's the part no one ever tells you. Estrangement isn't always a clean sever. Sometimes it's more like scar tissue. You learn to live with it. You touch it once in a while just to remember where the wound was. When Marin moved into her apartment, I sent her a lavender-scented candle. No note, no card, just a silent acknowledgement, "I see you trying." She texted back a heart emoji. Nothing more, nothing less. It was enough. Mom emailed me once, not long after the house officially sold. Subject line, "Thinking of you." No body, just the subject. I archived it, not because it didn't matter, but because I knew that if I replied, the thread would never end. and I wasn't ready for more threads. Not yet. Weeks passed, then months. And then, one Sunday afternoon, I found myself standing in line at Trader Joe's, holding a carton of oat milk and watching a family of 4 argue over which frozen pizza to buy. The mom looked exhausted, the dad distracted, one kid clung to her leg, the other pouted by the freezer door. I should have been annoyed. They were blocking the aisle. The line was already slow. But instead, I felt something else. Gratitude. Because I wasn't carrying anyone anymore. I was just holding oat milk, in my own lane, moving at my own speed. That night, I opened the drawer where I kept both letters, mine and Marin's. I laid them side by side. The paper had aged a little, edges soft, creases worn, but the words still hit like they did the first time. You are allowed to stop. I hope you'll let me try. I pulled out a third sheet of paper and started writing again. Dear Lauren, you didn't lose your family. You lost your role in a version of them that required your silence. You didn't walk away from love. You walked away from conditions. They made a choice in front of 52 people. You made a choice for the rest of your life. And both of those choices, they're allowed to exist. But you get to live. I folded the letter, tucked it in between the others, and this time, I locked the drawer. Not out of bitterness, out of peace. So, here's where I leave you. If you've made it this far, maybe this story touched something in you. Maybe you've been the cold one, the reliable one, the background character in someone else's spotlight. And maybe, just maybe you're ready to stop clapping for people who only applaud you when you're quiet. Let me be clear. Walking away doesn't make you heartless. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel. Refusing to fund your own erasure. That's not revenge. That's justice. We grow up being told that family is forever. But forever shouldn't require receipts. Love isn't measured in collage frames or public praise. It's measured in how people treat you when the room is not watching. So if no one said this to you yet, let me. I see you. I believe you. And you don't have to pay one more dime to prove your worth. Now I want to hear from you. Drop A in the comments if you've ever been the invisible one in your family. Or just write, I'm done if this story felt like your own. And if you're not ready to speak yet, that's okay. Sometimes, silence is the loudest answer of all. Thank you for watching. And if this hit home, hit subscribe. Because we tell the stories they told us to forget.